I use the term fantasy church. And what I mean by that is that we view institutions, Auburn University, Samford University, First Baptist Church, Auburn, Church of the Reconciler, as fantasy institutions, and by which I mean we expect them to be perfect. In our youthful idealism about the distance between what they proclaim and how they act, we just assume there's going to be a very narrow shade of difference between what they proclaim and how they act. When we think about that, we know that's not so. That is the facade of our families, and the facade that we circulate and we reflect is always a facade of everybody being happy, everybody being unified, and interior to that institution there are lives of quiet desperation everywhere you look. There are people whose lives are coming apart. There are people who are depressed. There are people who are contemplating suicide. There are people who are in adulterous affairs. There are people who cheat in other ways. There are abusive people. So we create these idealized institutions, and I call them fantasy churches or fantasy families or fantasy universities. And one of the most important parts of growing up is realizing churches are not perfect. And if what you want to be is a part of the kingdom of God in some institutional way, and you're constantly fleeting from this place to that place in order to find a better place, what you're going to find is the more you flee mortality, the more you find more mortality. It's just flawed. And growing up is partly the ability to make sense out of the flawed institution you want to become a part of, despite the fact that you recognize its imperfection. And what you do is you say there's enough left of goodness there. There's enough left of wholeness there. There's enough left of the ideal of what this institution was supposed to be about in order for me to join it and try to make it better rather than flee from it and just leave it like it is. But boy, they can break your heart.